Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Benner, and I was the leader of the last mission team that went to Gulfport, Mississippi just a few weeks ago. When we have a team return from a mission trip, we always have a member of our mission team come up and speak to the congregation. Usually we try to ask a newer member of the team to stand before you and tell you a little bit about the trip and what it meant to them. But as you can see, you get me again. I felt led to ask the team members if I could speak because this last trip to Gulfport had some significance for the church and for me. You see, this trip to Mississippi occurred exactly 4 years after our first trip to Mississippi and has been the 11th time we have been called by the Lord to respond to the ongoing mission of helping the hurricane victims. I have been blessed to be a team member on all 11 trips, and as I look back over the past 4 years, the most notable thing that I have experienced is change. The definition of change is to make the form, nature, content, or future course of something different from what it is or from what it would be if left alone. Surely change has occurred over the past 4 years because of what we as a church and many other churches have done for the people of the Gulf Coast. As I look back over my involvement with the mission work, I have seen changes in 4 different ways. First is the change that occurred in the Gulf Coast as a whole. On Monday, August 29th, 2005, Hurricane Katrina created an area of destruction from Central Florida to Texas, and tens of thousands of people were left homeless. At least 1,836 people lost their lives in the actual hurricane and in the subsequent floods, making it the deadliest U.S. hurricane since 1928. It was written that Hurricane Katrina was the largest natural disaster in the history of the United States. Damage estimates were well in the excess of $100 billion, eclipsing many times the damage wrought by Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Since that day, it has been over 4 long years of recovery, and much of the area has been changed back to some level of normality through the efforts of government and private agencies and thousands of volunteers. But there is still a lot of work to be done, and many families in the area, this work is only being carried out through the efforts of churches and religious groups. The second change I see when I am on a trip is a change in the people and families we help when we are down there for the week. Our time may be short and our skills may be limited, but you can see the impact we have as we do God's work of reaching out a helping hand to those in need. A perfect example of this occurred on the last trip. On the Tuesday after we arrived, we started working on the home of the Meyer family. This couple was in their 30s, and they had 2 daughters. The winds of the hurricane had blown a large tree down right through the middle of their ranch-style home, virtually cutting it in half. The man had been working for the past 4 years to rebuild their home while they were living in only half the space they once had. As we walked through the home with him, and he showed us what he had tried to accomplish and explained what he was planning to do, you could sense his feelings of frustration, exhaustion, and despair. He explained what he wanted his daughter's bedroom to look like and spoke of special touches that he envisioned for their family room. He had done most of the work himself, and all he was looking for was some people to help him put up drywall on the ceilings of several rooms. For the next 4 days, we all worked in his home, with him by our side. We not only put the drywall on the ceiling, but completed all the drywall work that was needed in the rest of the house, as well as getting the newly drywalled rooms taped and the first coat of mud put on. By Thursday, he was at work in the morning well before we arrived, playing music and singing along to the songs. He was a changed man. The third change I see occur in the mission trips is a change in the team members. On every trip, we seem to have 2 or 3 people who are on their first trip, or a few of our repeat members who have not worked together before. We start out the trip as all as individuals, but by the end of the week, we are one big happy family. all looking out for each other and dealing with the flexibilities required as a team. Each person seems to open up, and we all learn a lot about each other. During the past 11 trips, we have taken 98 volunteers and have had 56 different people work on teams. Many of them have gone on more than one trip. I'm confident when I say each of them has been affected by this work, and there is a special bond between all of us. The fourth final change I would like to talk about is a change in me. 4.5 years ago, I retired. I really didn't know what was driving my decision, but I felt I needed a change. As I came to find out, God felt I needed to change. I changed from someone who was searching to understand God to a man who has developed a personal relationship with him. Over these past 4 years, I have truly come to understand that God has a plan for me and try to sense the changes in my life he is offering me. Change is important to God. In Romans 12, verse 2, Paul gives a guidance for living as a redeemed people in a fallen world. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. This describes a process that God is using in our lives. He desires to change us daily. These changes may take 1 second or 4 years. Time is not as important to God as the end result. God gives us the opportunity to change, and we must make the choice for these changes to take place in our life.